Chairman Richard Hudson. Thank you so much for your time.
Great to be with you, Joaquin.
Before talking about your role at the NRCC, I want to ask you about the tragedy in Charlotte. What can authorities do to prevent these kind of tragic episodes?
Well, it was horrific to watch what happened to Irina, a young woman who fled to America to get away from the violence in Ukraine. To see what happened to her, it is horrific. And I've talked to a lot of friends who say, I've sat on a train with my earphones in or looking at my phone. It could have been me. It didn't have to happen, though. This is a repeat offender, violent criminal with a mental health background. He should have never been walking the streets. And, I think it's a failure of Democrats' soft on crime policies. We've got a magistrate in Charlotte and judges who continue to turn this individual loose. The system failed. And, I think we're going to be taking a careful look at how we can make sure this doesn't happen again. But it just shows you the results, though, of soft on crime policies that the Democrat Party has unfortunately adopted. But when you've got folks who are violent and dangerous, they need to be locked up. When you've got individuals with mental health issues, they need to be addressed. And in this case, someone who'd been arrested 14 times and shouldn't have been on the street in the first place.
Yeah, and President Trump, he in Truth Social and in X, he blamed precisely these soft on crime policies in democratic cities. So you agree with him that is the thing to blame here?
I do. And if you look at what President Trump has been able to do in Washington, D.C., this is a city that I come to work. And frankly, I don't walk around at night anymore because the crime has been so bad, carjackings, shootings. But President Trump showed that in a matter of days, when you actually enforce the law, when you actually take criminals off the street, you can stop crime. It's not very complicated. And so I support President Trump.
Well, let's talk about your work at the NRCC. I think you have a tough job. I think the last time that a president gained seats in the House in a midterm was in 2002. So what's your plan to make it different this time?
Well, one thing that's different is that, President Trump has been president before. So this going into the first midterms, if you think about the last couple of elections, we had President Trump in office for 4 years. Then we had a different president, President Biden, who had completely different policies, took the country in a completely different direction. And then we had a referendum election where the American people got to choose between the two presidents. I know Kamala Harris replaced President Biden, but it was basically a choice between the two visions for America. And the American people overwhelmingly chose President Trump. 77 million Americans, record numbers of Hispanic voters, record numbers of young voters, record numbers of African Americans voted for Donald Trump because they believed his policies will make their lives better. That gave him a very specific agenda. And I'm very proud that the Republican in Congress, we have delivered on that agenda with the working families tax cut. And so I think the American people wanted to see change, and we are delivering that change for them. We're keeping those promises. And I think because of that, voters will reward our party.
Do you think that Hispanic voters, the Hispanic community, could be one of the keys to retain the House in 2026?
I think Hispanic voters are the most important voting bloc. And I can tell you, the Republican Party, we are eager to earn the votes of Hispanic voters. We want your vote. We want you to be part of our party because Hispanics in general share the same values. We care about family. We care about faith. We want safe streets. We want good schools. We care about the same things. And if you look at the two parties in Washington today, the Democrat Party is not focused on the problems of hardworking Americans and families and small businesses, but the Republican Party is. And we've demonstrated that by passing the working families tax cut, which provided no tax on tips. It provided no tax on overtime. It provided tax relief for small businesses so they can continue to hire people. It's going to put about an average of $11,000 more in the average American's pocket per year because of our policy. So I think, when Hispanic voters look at which party cares about them, which party is solving the problems that they deal with day in and day out. When they look at which party shares their values, it's the Republican Party, and we want more Hispanic voters to join our party.
Sherman, let me ask you about the state of the Democratic Party. You think like the rise of figures like Zoran Mamdani or AOC like being the face of the party, that could benefit the Republican Party? I mean, that contrast?
Well, there is quite a contrast. I don't know that the parties have been more different at any time in American history. I mean, if you look at the Democrat Party nationally, it is represented by AOC and Mamdani in New York, and these soft on crime, high tax, open borders Democrats. And it's a shame. You know, my grandfather is my greatest hero in life. He was the biggest influence on me. He was a Democrat, grew up in Eastern North Carolina, you know, but he was he believed in Second Amendment. He believed in a strong defense. You know, he voted for Ronald Reagan. But, you know, back in his day, the Democrat Party was different, and it was very diverse. Today, the Democrat Party is controlled by the extreme left, and they just don't share the values of regular people in America anymore.
Sherman, is North Carolina a purple state, or we are not there yet?
Well, I think North Carolina is probably a purple state. If you look at all the cities in North Carolina, they're controlled by Democrats, but everywhere else in North Carolina is very Republican. It sort of averages out to be 50-50. If you look at the last elections for Senate, you know, Senator Tom Tillis, in fact, both of his elections, he was elected with less than 50% of the vote. So our elections are very close. I think that's good. Competition's good. And it means that as a Republican, we've got to go out and earn Democrat votes to be successful. I think that's a good thing. And I welcome that competition because, again, I think the Republican Party is the party that is focused on working people, that is focused on your everyday American and the problems they're dealing with.
I think you also have another important job. You are the chair of the Subcommittee on Communications and Technology. What do you want to achieve there during this Congress, and why is important?
Well, it is a very important committee, and we have a very broad jurisdiction. What we're currently working on, we just had a hearing on public safety. Years ago, Congress authorized a program called FirstNet, which created a communications platform for first responders so they can all talk to each other in real time and communicate in times of need or disaster. And that program's got to be reauthorized next year. At that program, can we make improvements? Is it working? What do we need to do? I'm also working on trying to upgrade our 911 system. So when you call 911 for help, whether you need an ambulance or a police officer or a fireman, we want to upgrade the technology. We're still using in a lot of counties in America telephone-only communication through our 911 system. What we want to do is have every 911 system in America, you'd be able to text them, you'd be able to send photos to them. If I call for the fire department and I'm in a high-rise building, they can locate using my phone which floor I'm on in the building. And so they can find me much quicker. If you're in a rural area, they can locate you more quickly using today's technology, the technology that we use on our smartphones every day. 911 ought to have that same system. So those are two of the main things we're working on right now.
Chairman, recently, Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, said that he wanted to use tariff revenue to pay off debt. You think that national debt is the most important thing? I mean, looking ahead?
Well, I do think our national debt is our most existential threat. It's the crisis we ought to really be paying attention to. It's not today, it's in the future. It may not be you and I, but it'll be our children who will have to deal with this. And if we don't deal with it, what it means is our children and our grandchildren will have a lower standard of living. And it means that we may not have the money we need in the future to deal with disasters, to fund a very strong defense so that other countries don't want to go to war with us and we can prevent wars. So I consider it a national security threat. We've started addressing our debt this year. The Working Families Tax Cut actually is the first time we've cut mandatory spending or the kind of cruise control spending that Congress doesn't vote on every year. It just keeps going. We cut $1.6 trillion out of the mandatory spending side. Overall, our bill, that's not a lot of money over 10 years when you think about how much we spend in the federal government, but it's a movement in the right direction.
Chairman, last question. What would be your message to those? I mean, it's early, but your message to those undecided voters ahead of the 2026 midterm elections?
Well, I would say that Republicans in Congress are working with President Trump to make your lives better. We've provided you tax relief that's going to mean real money in your pockets that you can spend on your family and your needs. We've provided no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. So again, you can bring home more of the money you earn. We've provided tax relief for small businesses so there are more jobs out there for individuals. We secured the border and provided the funds to make that permanent so that we control who comes into our country. We welcome immigrants to this country. We are a country founded by immigrants, but we need to have people come lawfully, and we're making sure that happens. Republicans are focused on the needs of everyday Americans, hardworking Americans, and when it comes to Hispanic Americans, we want your vote. We want you to be part of our party. We care about you. We share the same values, and we're working very hard to make your lives better.
Chairman, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Joaquin. Great to be with you.